So Shakur Stevenson and Robson Conceição just had a fight, one of which I can only describe as Shakur Stevenson dishing out a high-skilled ass whooping. It was a high-level technical ass whooping, man. I mean, Robson Conceição, to his credit, I respect any man who's willing to get into that ring and to put his life on the line and to fight for the entertainment of us, the fans. And I'm trying to be quiet just because everybody's sleeping, because it is like 1 o'clock in the morning and the fight just ended not that long ago. But he came out there and he was fighting pretty good in the beginning. You know, he was coming out, he was throwing a lot of combinations, he was really trying to press forward. He was actually catching Shakur Stevenson in the beginning. In the fight, it wasn't even during the first 3 rounds, but it was very much competitive during the first 3 rounds. But then you saw as the fight dragged on, Shakur Stevenson just started doing Shakur Stevenson stuff. He was being very tactical with his jab. He was throwing a very hard, sharp, straight left hand. And above all, he was throwing some fucking surgical body shots. Have you ever seen Training Day? You know Training Day with Denzel Washington and that one dude where he's like a police officer and he has that scene where he's all like, I'm surgical with this bitch. That's what it reminded me of, because Shakur Stevenson was very much being surgical with that bitch, with them body shots. He was literally just like, Robson Conceição would get into the right position, Shakur Stevenson would just boom, 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 just hitting him to the body. And all those body shots, they were really wearing Robson Conceição down, and he and Shakur Stevenson even got a knockdown with the body shots. Now, there was some controversy coming into this fight with Shakur Stevenson being stripped of his title and Shakur Stevenson having to pay a fine, all because he missed weight by 1.6 pounds, which is a significant amount of pounds to miss weight. He didn't really make too many excuses about it. He just said that his body has basically outgrown the division and he plans to move up to 135, and that he no longer has it within him to cut that much weight and to keep fighting at this lower weight class, which, you know, I can understand that, just because he was a relatively young man when he came into the sport. You know, as you start to grow and mature, you start to put on more muscle, especially if you're constantly doing exercises. Even if it's not necessarily weightlifting and it's more like calisthenics, push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, things like that, you're gonna put on more muscle mass. And when you do put on that muscle mass, it does make it increasingly harder for you to take that muscle mass off and for you to, you know, fit down into those lower weight classes. But I will say this about the missing weight. I don't really think it was too much of a detriment for him losing those belts, just because he was planning on moving up to 135, which is, you know, a glamour division, especially if you're a top ranked fighter, because they have a whole stable full of people like vasyl, lomachenko, devin, haney, nakatani, just people like that who, you know, you could fight and make some great fights, make some great money, and, you know, really build your legacy off of. But I think the biggest detriment to Shakur Stevenson was he gave his detractors fuel and legitimate reasons to criticize him. So before this fight, he had a lot of detractors just from the way that he beat Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez had a whole lot of fans. A whole lot of people like Oscar Valdez. He's connected with Canelo. Canelo has a Mexican fan base. So of course, Oscar Valdez, being Mexican and also being connected with Canelo, is going to have a big Mexican fan base. And a huge portion of that Mexican fan base really does not like Shakur Stevenson, because Shakur Stevenson, in order to get that fight, called out Oscar Valdez a whole lot. He called out Bob Arum for not making that fight, and he had a lot to say about Oscar Valdez when he failed those drug tests. So when he did all those things, that really left a bad taste in the mouth of Oscar Valdez's fans, his fans who forgave him for drinking the tea or whatever he did to supposedly fail the drug test. But up until now, they really didn't have any reason to criticize him, because all he did was he told the truth. He said this man failed a drug test. He thinks that he should have been punished for it, which Oscar Valdez wasn't, because boxing is corrupt, and they allow certain fighters to get away with certain things. And he got in there with Robson Conceição, the same dude who Shakur Stevenson fought today, and he won a controversial decision. So he was saying a lot of things that were necessarily true, and because Oscar Valdez and Canelo Alvarez and people who subscribe to, him have a big fan base. There's a fly in here. I need to kill it, but that's neither here nor there. It really rubbed them the wrong way. But they really didn't have anything to really say about Shakur Stevenson other than, oh, he's a boring fighter and he runs, which isn't true. He's a very technical fighter. But he is very much offensively sound. He does not run. He just moves like he literally just moves pretty much inches out of distance to establish his jab and to establish his left hand and to really dominate a fight, because he's a master of distance. That is not running. It's not his fault that he's not playing rock'em sock'em robots and Oscar Valdez and Robson Conceição really couldn't hit him that well, or no fighter couldn't hit him that well. That's a testament to him starting boxing since he was 5 years old and having thousands of hours of training so that he was able to do so. But when he came in, he was overweight. They gave them all the ammo they need to really tear this man down, because he did make a mistake and he should take responsibility for it, and he was punished for it, unlike Oscar Valdez, who wasn't punished. But basically when he did that, the optics look bad, because not only did he come in overweight, he came in overweight, he said, and the way that he was fighting in the fight was somewhat, it did come off a little bit dirty, because there were times in the fight where he was making quite a few low blows. There was times in the fight where he was getting frustrated that Robson Conceição was kind of neck wrenching him a little bit, and even though he was decisively winning the fight, he decided to throw Robson Conceição down several times. So the optics of the fight don't look good. You see this guy who they already don't like came in overweight, fought somewhat dirty, and he seemed to be kind of like disrespecting Robson Conceição throughout the fight, getting into his face. But it's a fight, it's a fight. It's supposed to be violent. It's supposed to be somewhat disrespectful, because you can love violence without loving boxing, but you can't love boxing without loving violence, because the violence is a part of it. Boxing is just refined violence. Is violence in one of its most beautiful forms. Violence personified in a form of art. It's similar to like martial arts. So it's a fight. I don't know why people always expect everyone to say nice things about everybody during a fight, because that's just not the way it is. That's not how everyone conducts themselves. And most great fighters, they were shit talkers. And Oscar Valdez, he didn't have nice things to say about Shakur Stevenson, and Shakur Stevenson didn't have nice things to say about Oscar Valdez. I didn't really watch too much of the lead up to the Robson Conceição versus Shakur Stevenson fight, so I really don't know what Robson Conceição's opinions are about Shakur Stevenson. I just know that he got his ass whooped. But like I said, respect to him for holding on, respect to him for having the heart to keep getting up, to keep pushing forward, to not quit on the stool, to finish that fight. He gets all the respect in my book for doing that, even though he was fighting a person who was superior than him inside the ring. But like I said, it just does not look good for Shakur Stevenson. He's giving his detractors all the all the rope that they need to try to hang him, to make him look like this terrible person, this terrible fighter, and all the things that they've been saying about him without any like feasible evidence. He's basically giving it to them, because when you're a person like Shakur Stevenson, or even a person like Vasyl Lomachenko, or a person like Canelo, or a person like Errol Spence, the bigger you get into the in boxing, the more detractors you're gonna have. Even people like Joe Louis, who were like the perfect epitome of a nice fighter, or Manny Pacquiao, who everyone really likes Manny Pacquiao for the most part. He has a pretty good character. Even guys like that, they're always gonna find a reason. there's always going to be a group of people who are just going to be like overly critical of you, and that's just the way it is. Now, he deserves it because he missed weight. Like, if he couldn't make the weight, he shouldn't have signed the contract. So in some part of it, he does actually deserve it. But I just can't agree with the lies that people say when they say he's not a good fighter and he's just a runner and all this. I'm like, that's bullshit. It's just quite frankly bullshit. But you know, hopefully he goes up to 135 and he gets a big fight soon. I would love to see him in there with Devin Haney. I'd love to see him in there with Lomachenko. I'd love to see him in there with Nakatani. There's a lot of great fights that can be made in that division. You know, Linares. Lots of great fights that can be made in that division. Jojo Diaz, I think he's still at 135. So, you know, I just can't wait to see for the future. We're going to get a lot of entertaining fights. Hopefully he learned his lesson to always come in, you know, with that within the proper weight limit, and you know, just looking forward to seeing more great fights. That's really all I gotta say about that, and I'm out.